I kind of have to remind people that the rigging of your vessel, both the standing and the running rigging, is your engine. People put so much money in maintenance and thought making sure the engine gets maintained, but then they forget about the rig for 10 or 15 years. Your running rigging is your horsepower. So therefore, it's worth putting the proper amount of time and maintenance and changeover of lines so that you get the best performance you can. With Degrades line, what do we need to look out for when we have our line that we've just put an investment in? The big issues of line degradation, of course, is ultraviolet rays, or UV as we call it for short. The sun can eventually deteriorate just about anything there is out there. However, each manufacturer has their own little trade secret of putting on various chemicals to eliminate as much as possible that UV degradation. The second biggest issue is chafe and deterioration caused by running through improperly sized blocks, bad fair leads, things like that will cause destruction of the line. The other thing is natural elements. If you're in a city where the vessel is docked all the time, you'd be amazed at how much dust and chemicals land on the vessel and on the ropes and just sit there, and then they get baked with the UV. We often get the question of what point should we replace the line? Look at all those factors. We begin to look at UV, which can be seen by a change in the color of the line, and you can run your fingernail over it or the edge of a knife sideways and you can see the fibers just tear apart easily. Do a good visual inspection of the lines, especially in areas where you can't see them very often. We're up aloft. When the halyards back down, check that area that's usually sitting in the upper sheave and the top of the mast, or for a genoa sheet or a jib sheet. Traveler blocks, the same thing, because they have a tendency to sit sometimes in the same areas, and looking for either crushing or the covers start to show a little bit of heat fatigue from being loaded up too much and actually trying to melt the rope. That can happen. Heat damage is caused by when you take any line and put a lot of stress on it, and you're taking it over top of a pulley, and it's doing this all the time as the vessel moves and goes through a seaway, or a puff of wind stretches the line and loads it up. That constant movement, even a little bit, will cause internal heat. And if it gets too bad, it literally, especially in some type of lines that have a low melting point, will begin to bind the fibers together and cause flatness. So that's what heat damage does to lines. And you get to the point where it just gets so damaged, you've reduced the working load of the line pretty significantly at times. If you see an area that's chafe, one of the best things you can do is what we call change the nip. Either let that halyard down a little bit or take up on it a little bit and change the location of where it's sitting in sheaves or in a cleat or in a jam cleat. But when you get to the point where you start getting damage, it's going to depend on how much damage. If you're just starting to chafe the cover, then you can probably run some cloth tape on it, and that usually can be in your pair kit. It's the same kind of tape that that hospitals use, or hockey players use to wrap around their sticks. They use like a cloth type of athletic tape. That is a temporary solution. And then you've got to factor in how long's your voyage? When's the next time you might get access to having new lines? Do you have extra lines on the vessel? I mean, all of these are factors for ocean voyagers and for round the buoy guys, making sure that the lines are going to last through the season. All right, how do we clean our lines? Just a mild soap. If you've got a front loader washing machine, you can literally throw your lines in there with a little bit of mild soap and run them through and then hang and dry. You always want to stow lines as thoroughly dry as possible for the winter. That even goes for on board your vessel. You're done racing for the day, you're back at the dock, hosing down all those lines and letting them dry. If you're going to stow them down below, you want to put them in a place where they're going to drip dry and not be sitting in moisture, because that's the other thing that, especially the salt gets in there, gets in between the fibers, crystallizes, and begins to act just like a knife. Salt exposure, chafe, UV, all of that can be mitigated by making sure that you wash the rope and put it away, or at least rinse it off after you're done sailing for the day.